Hello YouTube, back once again with my film reviews, and the other night I saw the surprise hit horror movie, Don't Breathe. Ooh. Okay, plot of this movie the movie is about, three petty thieves who breaks into an old, blind man's house, because apparently he has $300,000 in cash somewhere in there, and what they thought is going to be an easy job quickly turns into a night of cat and mouse, as it turns out this blind guy is a super survivor and instantly kills one of them, and the other two are just trying to survive the night after that. So, that's the concept of this movie. What's the good and bad of this movie? The good. Well, let me just say this right now. The acting in this movie is really strong. It's surprising how good the acting is. Jane Levy as one of the main two thieves. She does a really good job at switching between being sympathetic and likable. Like, they give her a nice backstory in which, like, she's mainly even though she is doing this job somewhat for her own personal gain, she also just really wants to get her little sister out of the crappy situation they're in at the moment. So you can sympathize with her, but you also can also find her, like, really unlikable, like, when shit's starting to get really bad, like, how she does just seem, no matter what, like, refuses to let go of the money, like, she still always wants to get it through the entire film. So, she's really good. Dylan Minnette from Goosebumps, funny how he went from, like, a kid's, like, comedy horror movie to a legitimately scary horror movie. This guy's awesome in this movie. He's definitely the most likable character, I'd say, in this movie. Just how much he cares about his friends, and the fact that he seems to be the only one with, like, a pretty straight moral compass for the most part, besides the fact that he's stealing, like for example, like when he sees that things like this, like, at first he, like, questions, like, I feel this is morally wrong of us to rob a blind guy of, like, this money he got from the death of his daughter, and not just that though, like, when he sees that one of them brought a gun, he's like, no, I am not gonna stay here and risk, like, killing a blind guy, like, I'm not doing that, and so he's definitely the most morally straight of all the characters, but so you do like him the most, and let me just say, just the amount of abuse this kid takes through this movie, and the fact he keeps standing back up to keep trying to save Jane Levy, he is just so likable because of it. So Dylan Minnette's great, and both these actors, Jane Levy and Dylan Minnette, they both have such a wonderful face of terror and unease, like, anytime they're trying to stay completely quiet because the man's blind, so any slight noise can give away the location to him, but as long as they're quiet, they can't tell where they are. So there's just so many scenes when they're just in the same room as him and he doesn't know them, they're just trying, like, anytime you're trying to stay completely still and not move a muscle, have you ever done that? Like, it's actually quite difficult, like, your muscles do start, like, twitching a bit, like, because you can't help just feel like, oh, I can't move, because that's your only thing your mind's thinking about, and then starts psyching you out, so they did a really great job. So, those two, Jane Levy and Dylan Minnette as the two main things were really good, but Stephen Lang as the old blind man they're trying to rob, this guy is just amazing. This guy is so awesome from beginning to end in this movie. Just for the fact he's just so badass and so threatening while being blind. He is a blind man, and he is a legitimate, credible threat throughout this movie. Like, there are so many scenes when he's just standing near, like, one of the two thieves, and you're just wondering, like, you're just thinking, like, oh god, like, slightest wrong movement, these guys are dead, and because they show very early on how resourceful this guy is. They show he's very resourceful, very clever, and he is just a complete badass. It's basically, a lot of people have been describing it as, like, this is a horror movie based around thieves that try to rob Stick from Daredevil, and that's basically what it's like. This guy, like, his blindness is just a slight handicap for him, because if he didn't have that, these guys would be dead in 5 seconds. So, yeah, Stephen Lang was awesome, and just like Jane Levy, you do really switch between sympathizing with this guy for the fact, even though he is trying to hunt these guys down and kill them, you're like, well, technically we're trying to rob him of the money he got from a settlement from his daughter being hit by a car, and hit and killed by a car, so you can't help but feel bad for him, like, when they're trying to steal his money from that. And not just that though, you're just thinking, like, okay, they did bring a gun to this, can you really blame him for trying to shoot these guys? Like, probably doesn't know that they don't have guns, well, at least not at first, so or that they're not dangerous and trying to kill him. So, yeah, you really do sympathize with him, but then you also really start hating him when some of his dark secrets start to get revealed. You're like, oh, this guy's creepy and gross, and yeah, so Stephen Lang was amazing as the villain in this movie. Such a good presence. Like any horror movie, the big question is this movie scary and intense. Let me just say, this movie is as tense as hell. This is such an intense movie. It takes full advantage of its concept of the fact that it's these two people trying to evade an old blind man. Just has so many wonderful ideas they get from that. And not just that though, they also take very clever. They're very clever with the whole idea of sound in this movie, for the fact that this guy can only really mainly sense them with sound, and because of that there's just so many clever scenes in which so many intense scenes in which they're just trying to like slowly back away, and then like they'll just creak a floorboard or like step on a piece of glass, and then like the guy like the Stephen Lang will just then like shoot over and like start looking at them, and you're just like, oh god, oh god, oh god. And so yeah, not just that though, they're also really clever. It's also clever though because there are scenes when the thieves actually try to take advantage of the idea that this guy's blind and he can only sense with sounds, in which they start trying to make noise from other sources so they can't hear he can't hear them moving, and that's really he can't sense them, and that was really clever. And I also like the fact there's very little dialogue in this movie for a movie called Don't Breathe, because they are trying to stay quiet. It's usually only the thieves calling out for each other or quickly establishing their next move and trying to escape the house. And so I do like how little dialogue. Like I think Stephen Lang, he barely says anything except grunts until near the very end of the film, so that was really cool. It also helps the fact that there's this whole thing, you can't help but feel really bad for these guys after all, because they just can never seem to catch a break. There's just rarely a moment of relief in this film. Just anytime you anytime you start thinking you can take a breath for a moment, like these guys are safe momentarily, no, something happens and they're in just as shitty of a situation as ever. And yeah, so it does work, the fact that like this movie is almost making you constantly hold your breath, because they can just never catch a single break in during this entire film. And then I also have to give credit, there is not a single false jump scare in this movie. Anytime there's a jump scare, it's because it's the old man or something attacking these guys. The only one you can argue for one that's a false jump scare, but I would say it's near the very beginning, but I would say it's not, because it does come back later, like what like jumps out at them. And so I would say no, it's not a false jump scare. I'd say every single scare in this movie is legit. It's because it's the old man attacking or them seeing something terrifying, and it's really effective. The cinematography in this movie is fantastic. Does a really good job of just holding on all the shots. So many shots that are just held on these characters when the old man's trying to sense them, and they're just trying to stay as still as possible. And the fact that the camera will not move also makes you feel the unease of the fact that they're just waiting for this guy to stop being listening so carefully for them. So cinematography was great. There's an amazing scene in the very beginning, early on in this movie, when they first enter the house, in which it's had to look like it's one long continuous shot, as if it's a character all its own, as the camera just moves through this house. It stops on all these things, like a gun underneath a bed, like a saw on a workbench, a washing machine next to a hammer, and that it goes through the floors. You see how there's a ventilation shaft underneath the between the second and first floor, and it just makes your mind it just has you wondering when will these things come back. It makes you think the entire film okay, when is that plot device is coming back, when are they going to get there, even, and it's really clever that way. It's a really great shot, and it really does make you wonder what it does make you think. Okay, it just makes the entire movie, you're just thinking, okay, when is that going to come back? When is that going to come back? And it's really clever that way. I gotta give this movie credit, because I really thought I was going to blow it here. This movie builds a very solid mystery early on. And it has to, if you saw the trailer, so spoiler alert, but I wouldn't say it's really spoiler, they show in the trailer, it has to involve the girl in the basement, and at first they give a quick answer to it, but then the old man has a reaction to this girl at a certain point, the girl in the basement. It did make me wonder, it is a legitimate mystery. Why is he reacting this way about something that happens to her? And I was really unsure. I was really unsure until I was just thinking, like, please don't make this something really stupid, like he's a cannibal or something like that. No, when they give an answer to why he reacted that way, it's really, like, I was expecting something really stupid. It's actually really creepy and unsettling. Like, my entire audience, when they realized what was going on, we were, like, everyone in the audience was just like, oh, Jesus Christ. Like, ew, that's just an unpleasant thought, and it is really effective. So I give this movie a lot of credit. I thought they were gonna blow it there. It's a really good payoff to the mystery they set up early on. So yeah, so good on this movie. Acting is great. The two thieves are likable even though they're thieves. Stephen Lang's freaking awesome and terrifying as the blind man. It's intense. Cinematography's great, and it has a solid mystery. What's the bad of this movie, though? I did have a few issues with it. The ending felt a bit odd and unnecessary. Like, there's a lot of people talking about this, like how, like, there's a scene in which it fades to black, like, near the end. You just assume that would have been the ending, and it would have been a perfect way to close the film, but then there's, like, an extra scene after that, and then the movie ends, and you're just like, what was accomplished through that? Who cares? It was just odd, like, it just felt like, why was that there? Like, it doesn't really add anything to the film. It just feels kind of disjointed. And I really hated the first shot of this movie. I won't say what the first shot is, but it, like, a lot of my audience, like, when, like, it's explained later what that shot meant, like, I could hear a lot of people, like, kind of go, like, oh, well, that's what it means. I was like, really? You didn't pick it up, like, when you saw that? Like, when I saw that show, I was like, really? Like, you're showing us this? I know exactly where this is all gonna go then, and even though it surprised some people, my only thought is, maybe if you blinked and you missed what the shot was, I could understand that, but for the most part, I was like, I know exactly where this is going because of this shot, and it really annoyed me because of that. But I will say this, it does go past that shot later on in the film when they explain what that shot meant, and I'm glad because if that's where the movie ended with them explaining what that shot meant, I would have been really angry with this film for showing that. But my main problem with this movie, and this felt really odd, was I really feel that the film, like the writer or director, wasn't sure if they wanted the hero to be Jane Levy or Dylan Minnette the entire film. Like, it felt because for a while in this film, it really does seem like they want Dylan Minnette to be the hero, which makes sense, like, considering the fact he's, like, the most heroic and most likable out of any of them, and he's the one that never seems to be consumed by his greed, unlike Jane Levy, who at certain points just does seem consumed by the greed of wanting the money. No, he's the only one who's just, like, when shit starts to get bad, like, halfway through the film, like, he comes up with a plan. He says, like, okay, like, this has gone way out of hand, like, we could die, like, this has gone far past anything we could have imagined. I have a plan to get us out of here, but Jane Levy's like, no, because then we'll lose the money if we do this, and Dylan Minnette is just like, no, come on, like, we can't let ourselves be consumed by our greed here. And Jane Levy's like, no, I want to keep the money, and it stays like that. But then later on in the film, this comes out of nowhere. There's just a scene in which Dylan Minnette just suddenly says, like, Jane Levy's like, okay, let's go with your plan now, you're right, this has gotten way too out of control. And then Dylan Minnette's just like, no, we need to keep the money, like, things have changed. And I'm like, no, nothing's changed from your original plan. You literally, because, like, Dylan Minnette, it's not really about greed, it's more him not wanting to go to jail, but he comes up with a reason why it would be okay with them going with his plan. But then later on, nothing has changed. He just says, no, that plan won't work. Like, we need to keep the money now. And it just comes out of nowhere, and it really does just feel like it was because Dylan Minnette was originally supposed to be the hero, and then they decided at the last second to change it to Jane Levy, and because of that, it's this really awkward mix in which, like, you're just like, I feel like the opposite reaction should be going on to the current situation, but no, that's what happens, and it just felt really awkward to me. So maybe that's just me. Maybe Jane Levy was always meant to be the hero, but even if it was, they should have been more explanation for why Dylan Minnette says what he does near the end, because with it just made me think, the only thing it made me think was like in the earlier script for the draft of the script was it's supposed to be Dylan Minnette who said this and not Jane Levy. Like, was Dylan Minnette supposed to be the hero of this film and not her? But anyway, besides that though, still acting's great. It's incredibly intense, and my God, was that blind man awesome? Was Stephen Lang awesome as the blind man? So in total, I'm giving Don't Breathe a very solid 4 out of 5. It's a great horror movie. I loved it. Definitely go see this if you can. It's tense as hell. Definitely a great way to close the summer movies this year. Way better of a way to close it than Suicide Squad. So go see it. And let me just say, this really has been such a great year for horror between this, The Witch, 10 Cloverfield Lane, Lights Out, Conjuring Part 2. Great year for the horror movies. Very surprising. So, yeah, YouTube as always, please subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Okay, bye.